Hi, it's Chris Grimm, and this is Deep Work Fast. Every week, I bring you tools, ideas, concepts, models, theories, philosophies, anything to help you be the best that you can be in all parts of your life, at home and at work, in all the roles you play: parent, partner, boss, team member, all of them. Yesterday, I dropped a blog called Healthy and Unhealthy Fear, helping you navigate that, helping you know the difference. Heather just put the link in the chat. I want you to really get to know this. The reason is because if I were to name kind of, one of the big three things that pop up in coaching and lead into deep conversations, and this is Deep Work Fast. So I wanted to, as always, bring you things that could be an unlock. So today, I'm not going to read the blog to you or tell you what's in the blog. I want you to read that. It takes about 2 minutes. That actually talks to you about what it looks like when fears are healthy versus unhealthy in your life. And I want to be clear that in coaching, we're not therapists. I'm not a therapist. And so when I know that a fear has become unhealthy is when you tell me that it's distracting you or completely interrupting a process at work. You're maybe creating an inability for you to move forward, make a decision, like I said, talk to your boss about getting a raise, whatever it is. If it's stopping you, it's unhealthy. Now, it doesn't mean that the fear itself isn't something that maybe you should be concerned about. And so what I thought I would do today is get super clear, because many people don't quite understand that we do have built into us, literally built into the way we think, into our psyche, some primal fears. So mission control, can you give me a slide? I brought the list. I thought you might want to look at it, not just look at me talking. And then I can go through the list with you. And what I want, nope, the other slide. Thank you. Not those yet. Can we go back one? Thank you. Okay. So let's talk about primal fear. Let's talk about how it shows up in modern life, because an interesting thing is that these primal fears are the ones that our ancestors had for years and years and years, hundreds of years, thousands of years. And they had to worry about them because, of course, they had to survive. Now, even though when I'm in coaching, people will look at me and go, okay, it's 2024. Why am I having the same fears as my ancestors? I'm not getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Why is my fight or flight response triggered all the time? I didn't have lots of trauma in my life. Why is this hijacking me? And the reason is because our psyches, right? We have collective ancestral beliefs. Because people faced certain things, like I said, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, based on basic survival, we're wired to worry about those things. Now, they don't look the same as when we lived in caves or whatever was happening back then. So I want to talk to you about these primal fears, because most likely, as I'm talking about them, you're going to go, oh, wow, that's how it shows up and influences how I behave today. So if you're looking at the list, the first one is, and if you're on Spotify and you're only listening to this in audio, let me read them. The first one is the fear of darkness. So yes, my friends, for many, many years, we had no light. We had fires at night. We had the sun during the day, but darkness was a thing. So believe it or not, many of our ancestors feared the dark. Why? Well, because there's animals at night. You could be hijacked or ambushed by people at night. So the dark was something people were afraid of for a very long time. Now you might say, okay, but we have electricity now. I don't have to be in the dark. Well, I want you to think about this literally and figuratively, because our bodies, because we have that amygdala, we have that part of our brain that's always scanning the environment for threats. And it has knowledge of the near-term threats and the threats in your current life and what you believe those are in your worldview. But it also has all that ancestral DNA and wiring in our psyche. And so fear of darkness now for you, get ready, could be the fear of being kept in the dark about something. Maybe you believe people are hiding information. Maybe you're going through change or something in your life is uncertain. That could be triggering a fear of what used to be darkness. And today, your darkness just manifests itself in a different way. It might not be actual darkness, like turn off the lights. It might be fear of not knowing. And I want you to think about that, because in most of our lives, information is power. And in the modern workplace, because information flow and decision making is a critical part of being successful in your job as an adult, most likely the fear of not having that information or being left in the dark is something that could feel existential to you. So if you get triggered by that, like if you get super duper angry if people don't share information with you, or you're left out of a meeting and it feels irrational. And this comes back to that like healthy versus unhealthy. Sometimes having the fear of it and then getting a hold of the fear and turning that into proactive, like seeking clarity, proactive communicating with people about it, right? If you handle it in a rational way, and in a little bit, we're going to talk about rational versus irrational responses. But I want you to just think about how this plays out instead of just ignoring this and thinking that it doesn't affect you. Most likely, this does in some way. The second one is a fear of heights. So often people will say to me, wait, what? Right. So think about it. For years and years and years, hundreds, if not thousands of years, people, well, we didn't fly. So unless we climbed up and jumped off of something, we were pretty much feet on the ground or body on the ground for generations. So being above that was a fear. So in modern day, first of all, many people still have the fear of heights. Many people, it might be you, also have a fear of flying. So if you think about all the phobias that are related to not having yourself grounded, sometimes people get and have fear, I forget what it's called, by being locked in a room, or claustrophobia in small spaces, right? It is all related to this. It's spatialness. It's not being able to see the horizon. It comes to how our bodies are actually wired, and our circadian rhythms are wired to be outside, to know where the sun and the moon are. That's how we navigate. So that fear, a primal one, has a lot of pieces to it. So again, if you are triggered, and maybe in the day, sometimes you get panic attacks in an elevator, or maybe, like I said, you have you don't like to fly, like you're uncomfortable when you're in the plane, you feel claustrophobic, and you're afraid of the actual flying. So again, that can be handled rationally, and sometimes it could make you feel irrational. And I'm showing you this because I just want you to know that some of this you can navigate, but you have to just know it exists instead of resisting it or denying it. The next one is a big one. It's the fear of predators. So probably obvious at one point in time, specifically when we didn't live in houses that were protected, or if you live in a place where you don't feel safe, you have to lock all the doors at night and worry about who's outside and sounds, etc. Right? So this is deeply wired in us. This is one of the key survival fears that we have. In the workplace, and I want to speak to this because, boy, we end up coaching a lot around this, right? When you feel like someone's out to get you, or you have proof that someone is potentially trying to plan your demise. Maybe politically, they're throwing you under the bus. Maybe they're trying to get you taken off of a team. Whatever you think they're doing, whether that's real or not, you could be deeply triggered. And I find in coaching that this fear, when triggered, whether it's real or not, can bring out some of our worst, what we call derailing behaviors. So you should know this about yourself. You should know if this is exacerbated by times in your life where maybe you were bullied. Maybe you actually did have to run from someone. Maybe you, when you were young, you got in a lot of fights with people who were bigger than you and stronger than you, or maybe people who actually could hurt you. I have coached people before who were in gangs when they were young, or lived in neighborhoods where there were a lot of gangs. And so they carried those deep ingrained fears into their adult life. And that makes it very difficult when you're in situations and you run into like corporate politics. And so it ends up triggering that. And when I say trigger, if you haven't heard me use those words before, it means that an event happens. Someone says something, you read the email, maybe they say it to your face, maybe they write it in an email, maybe they say it to someone else and that is told to you. And all of a sudden, emotions come up for you and they are very, very strong. And that's what a triggering is, right? It's like those feelings that are intense, that they feel like they have urgency or immediacy to them, and they kind of can hijack you, or they completely hijack whatever you're doing. You can't focus anymore. And you feel that anxiety of like, I got to do something. And your fight or flight response turns on. And what does fight or flight do? Well, it makes us want to run away, or it makes us want to fight with someone, or it freezes us. So I want you to be aware of that, because this is a sneaky fear. It's a sneaky primal fear that many, many people are actually getting triggered by, and they don't always know it. And they think it's irrational, because when their cognitive intelligence is functioning and you're trying to do spreadsheets and you're trying to do PowerPoint or whatever you do for your day job, this stuff can make you feel a little crazy because it's primal. And when it hijacks you and you don't understand why you're being triggered as strongly as you are, it can really hurt your confidence. And like I said, it can take on derailing behaviors. And derailers are the behaviors that when we use them too often or with the wrong people, they can make them believe that you are not able to do your job. I don't want that for you. You don't want that for you. Okay. The next one is the fear of death. So fairly obvious, right? Most of us want to survive. The opposite of that is not surviving. These are not in an order, by the way. So maybe death is number one. I don't know. I'd have to look for some research on that. But obviously, death, not wanting to die, is a very significant primal fear. We are wired to do what we need to do to survive. That's what our fight or flight response actually is, by the way. Fight, flight, freeze or fawn. Those are the 4 behaviors. I've done another blog and another deep work fast on that. So you can find that if you're interested in kind of double clicking into that. But remember, we are wired to survive. And so there are a number of modern situations, contemporary things. So you don't just have to be threatened by death to have this fear pop up, get triggered, and then be with you in how you're making choices, etc. So you could get fired from your job or laid off. And if, in fact, you are a person who stays in negative trains of thoughts too long, or you like to catastrophize, like you go all the way to the worst case scenario to things. Like I've had someone laid off before. I knew that they were going to get a job probably really, really quickly. But for about a day or two, that person was convinced that they were going to be homeless and most likely die on the street. And this, by the way, is an incredibly rational, very successful executive who I won't name. But even the most rational of us, and most successful people have these fears. And when they trigger you and they show up, boy, can they just take you through a loop. So I want you to be aware of these things. Last one, fear of isolation. This is also a fear of rejection. So it's not just being left, isolation, abandonment, rejection. So this is a foundational fear that often leads us to people please. It can lead us to be in social situations that we don't actually really want to be in. I coach a lot of people, as you probably know. And one of the things I find, for instance, with people who are highly introverted, who don't want to network and don't want to socialize, often have a lot of anxiety around that, but they do it anyway because they believe they have to do it. And in some professions, I would agree, you probably have to do a little bit of that. But I have coached a few people where they really had to work on how they were getting triggered and when they were getting triggered, and starting to realize they had this kind of fight on the inside of themselves around, okay, well, I don't want to be so antisocial that I get fired from my job, or I'm not a good teammate, or I'm not seen as networking in my industry because I'll lose power. And then I'll be isolated, right? No one will want me to work there anymore. So our brains do some funny things when these things are triggered. So I want to give you an amazing tool that you can use. Go ahead to the next slide, please, Heather. I'm going to give you what are called the 5 rational questions. They were developed by Dr. Maxie Maltzby, who is no longer with us, but was the head of psychiatry at Howard University for a long time. Dr. Maltzby, I had the privilege of knowing him. An amazing man, and his goal, by the way, was for people not to have to go to therapy all the time, but to be able to, in real time, kind of coach ourselves into better, healthy, rational thinking. So we came up with these questions, and they work, by the way, and they are a foundation of cognitive behavior therapy. So when you are in a situation, and I know people, and I advocate for this, having these like on a 3x5 card, or you can print this out. I think Heather was trying to find a way for us to share them. They're built into our Stop, Challenge, and Choose blog. So there's lots of places you can find that, or you could just Google it, or however you browse. The 5 rational questions, that's what it's called. Dr. Maxie Maltzby. Number 1, is my thinking factual? So this is a way for you to engage your left brain, your rational brain, when you're either hijacked by a situation or those fears have showed up and shown up, and you're on the brink of irrationality, right? It's disrupting you. It is keeping you from doing something. And you're like maybe freaked out about it. You're like, oh my God, I want to do that, but I'm too afraid. And I've wanted to do it. And I've been thinking it for a long time. So you pull out the questions and you try to ground yourself in rationality by saying, okay, is my thinking factual? Like, are there actual facts that help me know that this thing is happening, or am I making it up? Like, did I get information? Did I see one thing and I just made up a whole story around it? Number 2 is, will my thinking here best help me protect my life or my health? Like, are you afraid because you're actually threatened by something? Are you protecting yourself? Will my thinking help me achieve my short-term and long-term goals? Will my thinking help me avoid undesirable conflict? Oh, we have a cameo appearance by the dog. And the last one is, will my thinking help me feel the emotions I want to feel? Now, you have to know the emotions that you want to feel. And by now, 5 questions in, your left brain is going to engage, because now you're thinking. You're not just hijacked and feeling something. And most likely, if you pulled this out, you're feeling either a little crazy or angry or triggered or deeply, deeply afraid, like super afraid something's going to happen, maybe even paranoid. So if that's happening, your left brain's going to come on, and that rational thinking is going to help pull you back into the now moment, pull you back into what hopefully can be more rational thinking, so that you can respond if necessary, to whatever the situation is. Maybe you need to be proactive about something. Maybe if you are deeply afraid, like let's say on the news, they said, we're going to have a big earthquake, and seeing that on the news for 3 or 4 days in a row, you're freaked out. Maybe your family's freaked out. Okay, get out your rational behavior questions, or these rational questions. Start to ground yourself, engage your left brain, and then you can actually plan for it. It could be that simple. It's also sometimes that hard. That's why I bring you these tools, because it's not you alone and it's not me alone. For some reason, that's how we function. Heather, you can put that slide away. Thank you. So, thank you for joining me for Deep Work Fast. I want to urge you to click the link and read the blog. Like I said, it's like a 2-minute read. You might think this is not you, but the last thing I want to say today, and I know I'm over time, but I think this is worth it. There are certain times in our life when we have a lot of stress, and the holidays, maybe times where you've just taken a kid to college, or you're getting ready to take a kid to college, or you have a big business meeting come up and your stress and your anxiety levels are high. That is when some of those primal fears can get you, right? Because when we're not at our best and we're not taking care of ourselves, or maybe we're exhausted, like I said, or fatigued, really fatigued, then we tend to like overreact to things anyway. So those triggerings can kind of get pushed over the edge. And like I said, I want you to be the best that you can be. I want you to be in control of yourself as much as possible. I want you to be calm and clear and make good choices as proactively as possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with me. I will see you next week for Deep Work Fast. Grab that blog. Bye. Grab the blog. Hurry. Grab it. Use the questions. I'm still here. I'm still live. I don't know why, but grab the blog again. Okay. I'm still live. And we're still live. If you haven't yet, you better click through and grab that blog and read it again. What's happening, Heather? Why am I still live? I love it. I'm 22 minutes